Alrighty, I think we are live. So, hello there. Good afternoon. It is Monday, April 12th, and we are super excited to have you joining us here for our Overflow. And we have just started a brand new series titled Perspectives, Seeing God, Self, and Others, where we're going to be taking 10 weeks to go through the Enneagram. And really, the purpose of this series is to become more self aware, more aware of how God has uniquely made us and wired us, and helped us and formed us to be kind of who we are in order to be better disciples of Jesus, better followers, and just more aware of what it looks like to be a disciple given our personality trait. And also being aware of how others are made, how to relate with them, how to love them, and how to grow together with Christ. And so, super excited for today. We're kicking that off with our overflow time together. And we've got Pastor Juno and
Hello, hello.
Pastor Ryan B with us, and then myself, Pastor Ryan K. And so, as always, our goal for our goal for Overflow is to reflect on the sermon from the day before and to talk about practical ways that we can engage with this. And so, yesterday, we had a double header. We had guests Bill and Christy Galtier join us for our sermon, and then they also did a 1-hour training on the Enneagram after. Both of those can be found on our YouTube page, and so definitely check those out if you have not. But over the next series, we're going to be going through one Enneagram type per week, starting next week. And then each overflow discussion is going to reflect on a different attribute of the Enneagram and of the personality types for us to talk about. So today is really kind of an intro day. We're going to be talking through how we've experienced Enneagram, what we've learned from it, what questions we have, what we're looking forward to, some concerns to watch out for, some ways we can use this tool for discipleship, and just what we're hoping for this series. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you're watching live, we'd love for you to just comment in the chat, say hi, say hello, and ask any questions. And we love to chat it up. So none of us gave the message yesterday, but Bill and Christy Galtier did. And they did a wonderful job of really setting up why the Enneagram is helpful for spiritual formation, for discipleship, and why utilizing it is a key part of our faith. And so definitely check out their sermon. I think it'll be really helpful. But let's kick off today with our first question, which is just what has been your experience with the Enneagram? What have you learned through the Enneagram, and how has it been helpful?
I think for me, it's like any other tool in the sense of it can be used for good and it can be used to manipulate and not be used for good. And what I like about the Enneagram, and really what Bill and Christy brought out, was the fact that it's a great tool that can help us to be more Christ-like. And I think so much with these tools, there are so many out there, that it's easy to point the finger and say, oh, you're a this, you're a that, versus, oh, this is how God has wired me. And so how can I lean into my personality to be more Christ-like, as well as I got these few natural tendencies. How do I keep those at bay so that I'm acting and responding more like Jesus would? But again, I've heard horror stories from other pastors, and I've heard, like Bill and Christy and others who this really has been a great tool to be, I don't want to oversell it, to be life transforming, because Jesus transforms our lives, not the tool, but it's been a great tool for that.
Yeah, and I think this is ultimately a tool that is designed to help us know ourselves better, to grow in self-awareness and emotional intelligence. And we just finished a series, Emotionally Healthy Relationships. I was talking all about how when we become more emotionally healthy, it helps us to live more like Jesus, become more spiritually healthy. And guess what? I think the Enneagram can help us make us more emotionally healthy too, because we learn more about ourselves and grow. And I think it's really important, something that the two of them brought up yesterday, is that the Enneagram is not so that we can judge others or say, oh, you're in this number and that's why this thing's wrong with you, or put them in a box, or, make stereotype people. But I think what it's really supposed to be used for is you use it for yourself. You use it to understand yourself better. Because there are times where I read something about my type or hear something about my type, and it's like, yes, that is totally me. That is totally me. And that I totally am hurt in this way when Sarah, my wife, says this. And this is something we fight about. So it's just, it's really, really practical if you dive into it, if you read it, and it helps you learn more about yourself. And when you learn more about yourself, you can grow, you can challenge yourself to live differently. And, I think the Enneagram is a great, great tool to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think, Enneagram's one of those things where you can't quite grasp it right away. It takes some time to read it, learn about it, understand it, and then process it and understanding the different types. I remember first learning the Enneagram and talking with people who seemed to know all the types right off the cuff and just had it memorized and knew, oh, twos are like this and threes are like that and fives are like that. And I just thought, wow, how do you know it so well? And I think the more you dive in, the more you learn about it, the more you get from it, and the more you kind of work out how it all works together. I love too that it's got so many different dynamics. Not only can you identify primarily with one type, but the types adjacent to your type can be a wing, and it can be a part of your personality type. Or, there are growth lines and stress lines throughout the Enneagram where you go to in health and stress. There are triads and kind of divisions. And so there's all different sorts of pieces of this that I think are really, really helpful. I think I've learned a lot just about myself, and I'm just much more self-aware. A lot of things that it's like, this is how I am, and I've either denied it, I haven't realized it, or I haven't really embraced that that's what I'm really like. And so this tool has really helped me to understand much more clearly how I think, how I act, why I do the things that I do, in order to really take control of my own life and to make some decisions to grow to be more like Christ. And so, even just one example, I'm a type 7, and as a 7, we are known as the enthusiasts. And my default is really to have a good time, to have fun, to bring joy into things. And I do that whether it's a party or whether it's the most boring task. I want to bring fun into anything. And so just it's helpful to know that my default posture is to want to bring joy and fun into every situation. So knowing that helps me better navigate how to engage in different environments with different people and various relationships. And so Enneagram has helped me learn a ton about myself, and it's made more clear how to grow in my faith in Christ as well. So yeah, super excited.
Yeah, one thing also you had mentioned what they had shared. I think we believe it's part of our tradition that all truth is God's truth, no matter who says it. And what I liked yesterday, let me see if I can remember it. All truth is God's truth. Everything in the Bible is true, but not everything that is true is in the Bible. Did you catch that? Like you said, how to run a car, how to fix your car isn't in the Bible. There are so many things that are not in the Bible, but they're true. And so I think for some people, that may be a difficult pill to swallow, but I think it really, not to excuse the pun, I think it's true. But anyway, so.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I know some people have hesitancies about things like the Enneagram because maybe they're just skeptical of it, or maybe you've seen it misused or used badly by someone in some way. And I want to say that, anything when misused will be bad, including the Bible. For example, it was used for hundreds of years to justify slavery and the horrible treatment of African Americans. So, I believe the Bible is good, but when people twist it to their own ends, it can be bad. So just like that, the Enneagram misuse, it can be bad, but in the right hands and the right approach, it is fantastic.
Yep. Good analogy there.
Yeah, and I would say that Scripture teaches that one of the best ways to discern whether something is from God or not is to look at the fruit of it. And so, if you know Christians who have gone through the Enneagram and you've seen them grow to be more like Christ, more loving, more caring, more aware of themselves, treating people better, you're going to see a good godly fruit in their life from the Enneagram. If you've met Christians who quote the Enneagram all the time, and they've become, horrible people, they're making bad decisions, sin has increased in their life, they're not interested in God anymore, it's all about themselves, then that's going to be a bad fruit that you're going to say, hey, I don't know about this tool. There's some bad fruit. And so I would say, just even in the staff team, we've worked through the Enneagram a lot, and there's been a lot of good fruit, drawing us more near to God and helping us to better love others and to love ourselves, as we do life. So I think fruit is helpful. And my challenge would be, jump in with us in this series, dive in and see what you can learn and how you can grow. And if by the end of the series you've decided this is just not for me, this is not helping me, like, that's okay, then move on. You never have to touch it again. But I think everyone I know who's given this a good, genuine chance has really gotten something out of it that's helped them.
Yep. Again, you got nothing to lose. Absolutely nothing. Why not learn a new tool to put in your tool bag of relationships?
So what's something that we are looking forward to in this series?
Well, I would say I'm looking forward to exploring the types more because for those who don't know, we're going to be spending 9 remaining weeks in this series. There's 9 Enneagram types and 1 week on each type. And I think the best stuff comes out of the Enneagram when you really dive deep. You really take a deep look into your type, or even like your spouse's type, because, that's obviously your most important relationship. Like my wife is a 1, and they're even just going to the sermon and training afterwards yesterday, me and Sarah had a conversation about some things that Sarah really identified with John, his name John, Bill, his name's Bill. That Bill, he was an Enneagram type 1. He talked about his experience, and some of that really resonated with Sarah, and she brought it up when we got home, and it helped us process our relationship better. So I'm just really looking forward to diving deep into each type, and the process of doing that, seeing people realize things, seeing people understand things, or hearing something really speak to them and help them understand themselves better, and therefore helping them to grow and love God better. So I'm just really looking forward to diving deep into it with people and hearing how people are affected by it.
I'm looking for an increased shared language among people, and really among our church leaders, who hopefully are at least tracking a little bit with this. I'm looking for even an increased awareness among myself as well as our team. And what I appreciated again yesterday was, I forgot when they shared it. I think they've shared that they have, even though they are 25 years, they have been doctors of psychology, for 25 years, I don't know, whatever. I mean, these folks know their stuff. They have never used their other person's Enneagram type to pigeonhole them, to say that's just who you are. And so I really hope this is still another season of becoming self-aware and how Christ, and confident in how Christ has wired us. I'm still leaning toward the idea of community through this, because that helps, keeps everything in checks and balance and clarity. But individually as well as in community, just the self-awareness, and that Bill said it when he was with our staff at the end, that together, all of us with our different gifts and wiring, God is going to use for the kingdom, collectively together, to make a huge impact. And so it was a good reminder. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Some of the things that have been really formative for me that I'm looking forward to in this series. Number one, I think just having clarity of my strengths and contributions, what I do well, that I can contribute to other relationships, to environments, to teams I work on, and knowing what I can contribute well. I also think knowing my blind spots, what my issues are, my challenges, my weakness, my struggles, being more aware of those things so that I can work on them, improve them, and even just being aware of where I need to grow is helpful in all that. One of the things that Enneagram has helped me the most do is appreciate everyone's contribution. And so understanding all the different types and understanding why they are all valuable has really helped me to appreciate what people are trying to contribute in a team. So before Enneagram, I kind of used to see people that I gelled well with and worked well with and liked, and we just seemed to connect. And then there's people that
You and me.
conflict with and people that I just had a hard time with. It's like, I don't know why you would do this in this situation, or why would you think about this, or why would you approach this way? Like, who would do that, you know? And now it's like, I see this is what you value, this is what you're trying to achieve, and this is why you're acting the way you're acting. I no longer dislike you or dislike what you're trying to do. I see the value in it, and I need that value in what we're doing. And so I think that's been a huge thing for me, is really valuing everyone's contribution and what we're trying to do. And I think the last thing, and this was talked about a little bit, like with Ryan, is the relational benefits. My wife and I, when we read the description of how our two types, I'm a 7, she's a 9, relate together, it was just like the light bulb went on. And I think it was really helpful to see this is where we gel really well together. And in fact, the description is that 7s and 9s are one of the most common relational types and one of the strongest, because they've got all these things in common. And so it's like, hey, that's awesome. But then it's like, well, watch out for these things. This is where you're going to get in trouble. And it's like, that's exactly every disagreement, fight, problem that we have is in this list. And so it was just really helpful to know that, like, okay, this is why we fall into these things and this is how we can work through it. And friends and family, knowing their types, understanding how they function, what they're trying to accomplish in a given moment, has just created a lot of space to better love others, appreciate them, be connected with them, engaged. And like Juno was saying, community is huge. And I think this tool really helps us to collaborate, work well together, and to serve God together. So I'm really looking forward to those light bulb moments, to transformation, awareness, and change as well.
Yes, and right with that, Ryan, is taking the word rather than dismiss the other person. Hopefully, all of us can learn to appreciate the other person, or to gain an understanding to know, oh, that's why they're so about an issue, is because not because they're just ornery, but that they're wired, they're created. And so as a team, even as we create ministries and events, it is important that we have a mix in there, because people, we're not all the same, which is most of the time a good thing. But no, it brings a wonderful awareness to us and a richness to even our teaching and what we do at the church, because we're not all the same.
Yeah, and I just want to say, in response to what you said, Ryan, like you talked about how you read the type description for you and Hartley 7 and 9, how they interact, and the light bulb went off. This was probably a couple of years ago now, because I've known the Enneagram for a little while, but I had the exact same experience when I read the type description for me and my wife, my wife is a 1, I am a 5, and I had the exact same experience. Like there was like one sentence where I was just like, do they have cameras in our like apartment? Are they watching us? Because we do this all the time. Like that's literally what it felt like. And one of the biggest takeaways from that is like, I'll just go into this quick, but Enneagram 1s are they believe in right and wrong, have a really strong sense of morality. And because of that, they see the world in black and white, which can be really good sometimes. And 5s are very, very gray, because they see nuance and everything. It's like, oh, well, they were trying to do was this. They weren't trying to be mean, or, and me and Sarah have had a lot of conflict about that. But reading that was like a light bulb going off. It's like, man, that's really why the core of why we conflict about these things, and why we see things differently, and why maybe Sarah gets frustrated that I don't do things the way she wants them to be done. And I'm just like, man, like, I don't know, more like, oh, it's great, it's not that big a deal as long as it gets done. And she's like, no, there's a right way to do things. So anyways, all that to say, it's just like, there's really powerful stuff. And if anyone listening, if you know what your type is and know what your spouse's type is, and you wanted to like read that, It's all on enneagraminstitute.com. If you have any trouble finding that, you can reach out to me or Ryan or Juno, and we can help you find that. But it's really, really good stuff.
Yes, totally agree. And it's so funny because I can look back at major conflicts I've had in my life and go, I bet that one person from college that I just really butted heads was this number, and I think that's why we really didn't connect. And I bet some of my really close friends are very similar numbers that we really connect with, and it's just fun to understand all those different dynamics for sure. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then, looking back at the past, you can think of people's numbers. Then the practical application is if you have those situations now, how can you, use the Enneagram to work on those relationships or work on those conflicts and work through them to understand the other person better. This is all about empathy, which is something that Bill and Christy, I believe you got the names right, were really emphasizing yesterday. This is a way to be more empathetic towards other people, which I think is very important.
Yeah, I think one of the best ways to enter into conflict is to validate someone else and say, I see here your value for this, and I see why that's conflicting with my value for that. And so how can we work well together to, accomplish both of what we value, rather than I'm right, you're wrong, or conflict kind of like that. So let's jump into, I want to kind of talk about a little bit as we finish up our time here, how we can use this tool, the Enneagram, and this series for spiritual formation, for becoming more like Jesus, for discipleship. That's really what we're after. We're not just after self-awareness just for self-awareness sake, but so we can be more intentional about becoming like Christ. So the question is, how can we use this tool for spiritual formation? And I'm going to share first something that stood out to me from yesterday, and then you guys can kind of jump in with what you got. And so I'm going to set up my screen here to do a little screen sharing, and you should be able to see this. Can you guys see this okay?
Good job, dude.
And so
you must be a 7 to be able to pull that off. No, just
and so this was really helpful. This was the last page of the packet that we passed out at the training time yesterday. And it was, I think, really helpful. And so this is all the types, type 1 through 9. And then you have the false self, the true self, and the Bible heroes. And so the Bible heroes is fun, just kind of think about how they display those types. But what I really appreciated was the idea of the false self and the true self. So I'll start at the number 7 because that's where I'm at. The 7s are the enthusiasts. They love joy and excitement. They're constantly looking for pleasure. Their core sin is the pursuit of pleasure. And so my tendency is to look at a situation or an opportunity for how I can gain pleasure out of this, or to do whatever it takes to be in a state of joy. And so the false self is the hyperactive hedonist. A hedonist is someone who pursues pleasure, and the idea of being hyperactive is constantly going from thing to thing to pursue pleasure. And so in a lot of ways, my type, in an unhealthy way, in a non-Christ-like way, is just going to whatever I can go to satisfy me so I can feel good. And if that's not a recipe for sin and disaster, I don't know what is. And so it's helpful.
How were your college years then, dude?
Actually,
you don't have to confess.
Yeah, I've actually done pretty good. I haven't really done crazy things in my life.
Okay.
But I have the potential for it, know. So
if I'm really ever discouraged and depressed, I need to give you a call to say, let's party within the boundaries of Scripture.
Yes, I will take you for a good time. That won't include substance abuse, but it will include adventure and lots of fun things and people and stuff.
Okay.
So, yeah. Right. So unhealthy, non-Christ-like, hyperactive hedonist, but Christ-like, sober joy giver. And I love that because the idea of being sober is I don't need to go to all of these experiences to be okay. I can be okay with God's presence in my life. And I like the idea of it's joy giver. It's not so much like I'm just trying to satisfy my own needs. It's I am distributing the presence of the Lord by bringing joy to others. And so that's just a really helpful kind of thing for me to think through how the Enneagram can help me grow to be more Christ-like, is moving away from my false self into my true self. So I don't know. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Maybe reflect on your descriptions in here and see if you identify with those, or any thoughts on this.
Yeah, so mine, I'm a type 5, the investigator, and it says that the false self is the cynical Scrooge. And I actually had an experience, this is years ago, with a mentor figure in my life, where I guess the setup for me is like, I don't know, like there are times where I'm just like, I'm very analytical. That's a strength of a 5. I'm very analytical. I observe things. I gather in data and facts. And for me, like there are times where it's like, oh man, there's so many issues in the American church, not like one specific church, but just in Christianity in general in America. There's so many issues, all these things that are, that churches do that are bad, that are not Christ-like. And so I can be, because I'm analyzing things like that, can lead me to cynicism. And there was one point where a previous mentor figure of mine said, like, Ryan, you're really cynical about a lot of things. Do you trust that God can work in these situations? Do you trust that God has the power to redeem these broken things and make good out of them? And I'm like, I want to say yes, but I feel like I'd be lying because of all the ways I have been cynical. And that really challenged me. It really challenged me, like with my own analytical thinking that can lead to cynicism, to rethink it and really be like, man, do I really sometimes take this too far? And then, I don't know, it can lead me to be too negatively harsh. And that's something I have tried to work on and grow in as a Christian. And that was kind of not really related to the Enneagram and that thinking, but I see it played out here in the false self because I've seen that in me. And then the Scrooge part of it is just like 5s tend to be kind of hoard money and not be willing to spend. And I am very frugal, but I also try to be generous with my money. But the perceptive sage, I think the strength of that and the true self is maybe having a better understanding of your cynicism, but being perceptive as to where some things are good, where some things are bad, and how we can speak wisdom into that as a sage, as someone who, with that ability to analyze things well and bring good into those situations for growth and for God's kingdom and for power, and for advancing people to love more like Jesus. So I think if I'm being good and being healthy in my true self as a pastor, I become like the perceptive sage type in how I am in relationships with people, while I still strive to love people and not be cynical about people. I try really hard not to be cynical about people I'm in a relationship with. I always try to be positive about that. And now the last thing I'll say is the third column is Bible heroes. And I just want to say that, some of these characters are associated with a type. I don't think like saying like, oh, Paul is a 1 is a little problematic, just because like we didn't give Paul a personality test or whatever. And Paul, but there are just characteristics we can see in these Bible characters that maybe we can resonate with. So I think it's good. You can read about a Bible character and resonate with you if it's your type or whatever. So I think that can be good and powerful, but I don't think we need to treat these characters like they are absolute, like, David is an 8 in everything he does. Because I think there are many ways King David was like a 7, how he celebrated and with the Lord and wrote the Psalms of praise and, anyways. So that's just my 2 cents on the Bible heroes thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's your wonderful analytical, cynical side coming out. No, just joking. No, good job. Good job.
I don't think that was cynical. Analytical. Anyway.
No. Okay. And again, well, thanks there, Ryan. I know, in fact, last week I did a several-hour meeting with somebody to go through this again with me and a coach in this stuff. And she goes, June, you are extraordinarily high on several things. I said, well, I'm sure glad you didn't end this sentence with extraordinarily high. But anyway, but the 2 of the top ones really running neck and neck are the generous leader and the number 2, the humble caregiver. And as I'm working on the sermon for the following week here, that on number 2, it's that I don't know so much if it's in my career as being a pastor that at times where that's the job to give care, but I can, and I'll share this in a week. But really, throughout my whole life, there's been uh, a, a thread where I've either had to have given care from a young age to have received care from others, and so that is just, I think, woven in me, if I'm reading all this right. Uh, and and now the vain caretaker. So would you? This is the question for you guys. Would that be like somebody who's like the martyr? Oh, I'm helping out, but poor me, or wanting everybody to know I'm doing it?
Yeah,
Is
I
that
think that's definitely part of it. I think the the unhealthy two feels almost like a slave to have to deal with everyone else's problems and help.
okay?
Um, and the healthy two is almost like excited to care for others.
Okay. Yeah, I don't need to help everybody. I can easily delegate some of that. Maybe that's where my number 8 comes in. It's that as long as people, and even in this pandemic we're in, it's like I can't care for the 400 or 500 people in our database. It's impossible. Couldn't probably care for our 15 staff. Uh, but as long as people are being cared for is what's pretty critical for me. And then the generous leader. Uh, versus the controlling bully. I know when I look through these false selves, I probably, as Bill has shared in all of us, it's like we're all resistant, at least I am. It's like, well, that's not me. And I think Ryan talking with you months ago, it's like, well, that's, you don't walk around as a controlling bully when you're in a healthy place. When you're in a healthy place, you're a generous leader. But when things go unhealthy, that's a pattern, or that's a behavior that could root its head. And so, yeah, I mean, I, especially you guys as my team here, I'm sure you'd be happy to speak into it. But I think I do give a lot of autonomy to the staff and people to run with stuff. But if something isn't going right after numerous attempts, I can easily come across as a controlling bully, or you can fill in the blank there to say, no, we got to change, we got to do, this is going to happen. I'm done discussing. This is what needs to happen. But I have, whether it's with Mackenzie, unfortunately, I'm not married right now, and so it's easy. And that's for me, that's the value of community as a single person, because as a single person not in community, you can live in a la la land, and you can think you got everything under control, or you this way, and like you can live in a self fabricated reality. But being in community helps. The gift to us single people is that others can speak into, whether it's your strengths or your false selves or mood swings, whatever's going to take you to that bad spot, that they can help identify that. So anyway, yeah. I don't know if that is what you're looking for there, Ryan, but that's what it's.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I think you kind of bring up a good point that for some of us, we might be reading this and might say like, hey, I am living in my true self, and I think I'm doing pretty well. But the false self it's always there, kind of in the shadows, for us to dip into. And I might be, a sober joy giver. I might be, my default is for the most part, I'm, kind to others or blessing others or helping others have a good time. But it's always tempting under stress, under hardship, under feeling overwhelmed, or not feeding myself spiritually, not enough quality time with God, whatever it would be, these things come up, and then I can dip easy into that false self. And so just being aware of that, of where we tend to go, helps us to even see small things. Because I don't think we go from the true self to the false self in a moment. But I think we start to do little things here and there that, start kind of going down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, yeah, that's just super helpful to be aware of. to kind of think through this. So for those of you watching, think through this list. What type do you identify as? Where do you see yourself? And what's helpful and informative for all this? So, I think to kind of wrap up our time here, just to encourage you, if you haven't checked out our webpage, go to nl-cc.org/Enneagram. We've got a ton of great resources there for you. There's 4 basic steps. Take the Enneagram assessment. Step 2 is read the results of your top 3 results and the descriptions of those types. Step 3 is going to be the weekly discussion guide. And so we're going to be going through that here on Overflow. If you're a part of a life group that's doing that, you're going to be going through it there. But find some people to discuss with these things. There's a video and a discussion guide for each week there that's going to go through different elements of the personality description. And then there's some additional resources. So from our sermons to our Overflow to our weekly discussion videos and discussion questions, we've put together a lot of really good resources so that by the end of this series, we should be much more aware of who we are, how we function, our defaults, how we engage with others in the world, and what our family and friends and significant others are like, and how to best love them and work with them and serve them and care for them. So,
and again, Ryan, as you said, it's not just for our own self, but it's all of what you just said, and it's all for the glory of God, and that's what we're moving toward. And as a church, as an individual, anyway. So yes, good stuff.
Yeah, perfect. Any other final thoughts for today before we sign off?
Nope, you've heard me enough.
I'll just say, if you haven't taken the test and you go to take it, Ryan said you should read your top 3 results. The test is going to tell you, is going to give you one result like you are an Enneagram 2, or you're most likely an Enneagram 2, or whatever. But I will say, the best way to determine your type is to read through the types and be like, this really speaks to the core of who I am consistently, because it won't necessarily, like whatever type it says you are most likely are, it's probably right, but it might not be. So I think reading through the 3 types that come up the most and which one speaks to your core is the best way to actually decide what type you are. Let you decide it based on what you read and the information you intake. Don't let a test just assign you a number by itself, and that's it. But the test is a great way to know what the 3 most likely is.
Perfect. Yeah, I love it. Well, thanks for watching today. Thanks for being a part of this. Hope that it was helpful and a blessing, informative, and we're praying for you throughout the series that it would be a blessing for you and that it would go well. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next